Good morning, everybody, and let me start off this video by saying happy Pisces season. The sun earlier this morning transited into Pisces. So on today, February 19th, we begin Pisces season. It was an interesting transit, and what I'm going to do in this video is discuss the next couple of weeks right up through the full moon in Virgo we're going to be having on the 24th. I'm going to reflect back to the new moon in Virgo that we had back on September 14th of 2023, because that's a completion of that cycle, and I think we'll get a lot better insight into what's happening in this full moon if we understand what was going on in the new moon, like the energy around what kicked it off. So sit back, relax, definitely feel free to comment, ask questions. But I want to go over this stuff with you because I felt there's a lot of interesting things happening in the sky right now. Let's begin with Pisces season. The sun transited into Pisces around 5 a.m. this morning, maybe a little bit earlier. It is conjunct to Saturn, loosely. But what we need to know is that the conjunction with Saturn is about 8, so Saturn's at 8 degrees Pisces. The sun is currently at 0 degrees Pisces. So it's not a tight conjunction, but that conjunction is going to become tighter and tighter as the weeks move on. And it really is through March 6th that it's going to be at least loosely conjunct to Saturn. But let's get into, hold on. Okay. It's after February 28th, 29th that the sun will finally surpass Saturn, and it'll still be conjunct to Saturn, but it'll be moving on the opposite side of it. It'll be at higher degrees of Pisces, more advanced degrees of Pisces. So right now it is really feeling restricted. Because it's at the lower degree of the zodiac sign. It is really feeling the restriction, because there's conjunctions are neither good nor bad. They just have different dynamics to them. And where the planet, like a perfect conjunction, is when they're both at the same degree. But a strong conjunction, a technical conjunction, is anything up to 10 degrees within the same range of each other to be conjunct with each other. But a tight conjunction would be 5 degrees. Right now we're building up, and we're building up in a very tense way. So for the next couple of weeks especially, I would say that you're going to feel really restricted in your own sense of self and what you can do and how you good enough. Do I feel good enough? Do I feel capable enough? There's a lot of room for self-doubt when the sun is conjuncting Saturn. But it's at this lower degrees of Saturn. So Saturn is still kind of dominating the energy. So Saturn conjunct the sun can also be very productive, being very disciplined and finding the discipline inside of yourself to be able to be very productive. What I believe is that will happen once the sun surpasses Saturn around the 28th, 29th of February and finally gets to start moving on from it. It will still be conjunct, but I think that that's when we'll start to switch to feeling more competence as opposed to restriction and denial. Right now, this is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to feel difficult, especially for people born in Pisces 1, where you'll feel these self-restrictions, restrictions of I'm not good enough, or I didn't live up to my own expectations, or maybe I just can't figure out how to live up to anybody else's expectations. There can be some real energy here about feeling any kind of way when it comes to father, your relationship to your father, the kind of father that you are, not feeling good enough, feeling like you have to do more, or feeling so much pressure that you want to escape it all because the pressure is too intense. So understanding this, I think, is not going to get rid of it. It's not going to go away. The energy is still there, especially for people born Pisces 1 or Virgo 1. Or Sagittarius one, this would be square to you too, or Gemini one, this would be square to you too. This is going to pose a lot of challenges for you guys when it comes to this feeling of, am I good enough? Have I done enough? You know, and a lot of pressure building up there. Okay, let me just go into, there's something else that's sort of exacerbating this as well. And that's that this Sun conjunct Saturn is also semi-square to Chiron conjunct the North Node. Now, Chiron is in perfect conjunction with the North Node. That's at 16 degrees Aries. This is also the feeling of not being good enough, or the future not looking good enough, or not feeling like you have the ability to wanting so badly to break free from old routines and patterns and to see development and move forward in your life, but feeling like the world is making it as hard as possible to do that. And with that semi-square to the Sun conjunct Saturn, this can be a high pressure point of when a lot of people will give up or freak out. Could really lead to even depression in extreme cases. This sense of just never being good enough and not seeing anything moving forward, of feeling desperately that you want to move forward, but also feeling like you're never good enough, or that the future isn't good enough, right? What you're seeing right now in your mind is like, it's like, I've done all this work for this, you know. So there is a lot of self-undermining because of pressure building up, especially with regards to into the future, doubt of the future, or not really liking what you see moving into the future, or not feeling like you can move fast enough, or why am I not growing fast enough? Why am I not expanding fast enough? There's a lot of pressure that's building up around these feelings. And I'm discussing this with you because of the fact that we do have a full moon in Virgo that is coming up on the 24th, and Mercury has joined the Saturn-Sun conjunction at that point. So how have we been restricted in our own personal abilities to express ourselves in our own thoughts? How have we not been able to, or how have we felt like maybe we haven't been able to organize ourselves well enough, or organize our thoughts well enough? All of this pressure and all of this worry is what we're going to be releasing, or allowed to release, or what could come to a head by the Virgo full moon on the 24th. And it needs to come to a head. It will be a very emotional time, especially for those of you who have your sun, your moon, your rising sign around Pisces 1, because all of these planets, the Sun, Saturn, and Mercury, will all be conjuncting your natal sun around that time, at that time of the full moon, which of course is in opposition to your natal suns, because it's in opposition to the current sun. So this is going to be a very emotional time. Understand this. It doesn't mean that all these things are actually happening to you, but you are absolutely perceiving them as happening to you. It is very real that you need to release these toxins with regards to these feelings of inadequacy. Now let's go to, I mean, listen, at some point, everybody's feeling this way, but especially you guys, I would say Virgo ones, it's going to be a helpful release, more of a helpful release for you. For Pisces ones, it's going to be almost like it could really hurt a lot more. Be more painful, break things up a lot more, be more rupturous, be more volcanic than sort of that peaceful release of the dove. It's more volcanic, and it could be more rupturous and have to break through more stone and rock. Ultimately, proceeding in faith and holding on to your faith. Yes, I think a lot of us, we're going to make it through. It's just, where is the primary stress going to be involved? So let me go over the astrology first. We went a little into, okay, you know what? Let's also go back a little bit. Right now, currently, and throughout the month, we have Saturn and Venus and Mars conjuncting in Aquarius. This is really interesting energy, especially after the Valentine's Day season. If you saw my Valentine's Day post, this is really appropriate for it. Venus conjunct Mars in Aquarius is about brotherly, sisterly love, or it's about discovering the friendship components in your relationship, or it could be about just the sexiness of following the crowd. So all of those things, however, are not romantic, right? They're just very much sort of the sexiness of community or friendship or getting other people's approval. Can also be a more toxic expression of this conjunction. With this conjunction, I would always suggest, especially since on February 19th, they are still also both conjunct to Pluto. Work on the friendship parts of your relationship or your community relationships. And it can be very dominating now to be accepted within a community or within your group of friends. It's a very powerful energy, however it's demonstrating itself into your life. It can demonstrate itself into your life in a profound way that enables you to break free of any, overly romantic dependencies. But it can also be getting you dependent on being around people, being near people. I think all of us will start to want to be more social at this time. You'll start to see that even if you're not that social of a person, you'll be more interested in getting out and being socially active or more socially active than usual. It doesn't mean that anything unusual will happen. It just means that it's sort of pushing you to be inspired to be more social and be more socially active. If you're in a relationship right now, it is good for you to start focusing on the friendship aspects of your relationship. Not necessarily your sexual attraction to each other, but are you my buddy? Are you my pal? Am I taking you out? Are we having fun together? Are we engaging other people? Or have we just sort of like, especially still in the winter or coming out of really cold seasons, this sense of have we just lost ourselves in each other and not opened ourselves up enough to, be with other couples or be with other people or be with other people that we love? And I'm not talking about like, polyamory or anything like that. It's not even a statement about that. Even if that's what you do, it's more about getting your love situation, your connections, and being more public, like getting out, not just being obsessed within yourselves, but to sort of open yourselves up to having fun with others, right? That's more what, and yeah, with Pluto involved, it could have gotten real kinky too. Absolutely. It could have been opening and expanding yourself into group or orgy situations, but ultimately, I don't think that's what it was. I really think it was more a reminder to kick us out of our contentment or almost our confinement of being just sort of obsessed with romance, and then start to apply it to the larger group, or remind yourselves that yes, you're together, but you're also part of this community. Like, what are you doing together? How are you playing together? How are you socializing together? All of these things are really good dynamics to now think about in your relationships. I think there's a lot of really interesting things happening in the sky. Jupiter and Uranus are technically now in a loose conjunction because they're within 10 degrees of each other. It will grow more intense over the next couple of months as we look toward the actual conjunction in the springtime. But ultimately, we're going to start to feel that build too, because Jupiter then will intensify Uranus. It will make it bigger, and all of these shifts and all of these changes, especially in Taurus, can start to get, really dynamic and really rupturous at that time. So what I'm feeling in the air right now is a huge buildup of moving rocks, of moving bricks, and the frustration that comes with wanting to move them so badly, but they're so heavy. And so there's this real explosive energy in the air, but it's energy that needs to. This is a sense of things have rested and stayed stagnated, especially inside ourselves and what we think we're capable of, or what we judge other people as capable of, right? We've gotten too stuck for too long. And so there is this buildup that is set to happen. And especially the self-hatred or self-restriction, I think that will start to be able, that will explode first. And I think we'll be able to move on from that by the beginning of March, after the sun is finally advanced to Saturn and further along in Pisces. But right now, as we build up to this full moon, there's a lot of tension that's occurring inside of ourselves that make us feel not good enough. Let's get to the energy. I just want to review really quickly the energy of the full moon from September 4th. And if you guys want, what I'll do is create a blog about all this and post these printouts or post these charts into the blog so that you have some frame of reference as to what I'm speaking of. But let me just keep going. So on September 14th, 2023, we had a new moon in Virgo at 21 degrees. At 21 degrees Virgo. It was in opposition to Neptune. So this is very actually deceptive energy, confusing energy. It's very creative energy. I mean, a new moon opposite Neptune is, what can I create? What do I want to create? It's a very creative time. It can also be a dreamy time, a time of getting lost in your sense of capabilities or ideals. It could also have been a time when a lot of sickness started to enter your life, especially with that Neptunian opposition. So this full moon can represent the release of those toxins, the release maybe of even those toxic fantasies. Something that you started to build around that time could have been very illusionary. And now there's this wake-up call and this tough release, or just a realization of, if you really want to do this, these are the kind of mountains you're going to have to move. And that could discourage you a lot too, because maybe you thought it would be a lot easier. It was interesting, astrology, because at this time, Pluto, Uranus, and the new moon were all trine to each other. And they were a pretty tight trine. Pluto was at 28 degrees Capricorn. Uranus was at 22 degrees Taurus. And the sun and moon were at 21 degrees Virgo. So this was a real earth trine. It's almost like this easement of earth, this easement of possibilities. What is possible? It doesn't mean, and this is good, it's good energy. The frustration comes from the fact that it's difficult to move earth. So even though we were able to think outside of the box, now we have to figure on the practicalities of actually moving the boxes. And we're feeling that pressure that's built up with, why isn't this living up to the dreams? Well, it's not about living up to the dreams. It's not about living up to the way you want it to be or the way that you imagined it. It's about realizing that manifesting dreams is hard work. And it's going to be heavy work. And thinking outside the box still requires you to turn around and, in the real 3D world, moving the boxes. And moving those boxes takes time, energy, and effort. And if we thought it was going to be easier than it was, we're going to be extra frustrated right now. And that's what we're trying to relieve, is moving those boxes. Is like relieving that frustration and just getting back to the actual strategy of maneuvering the boxes so they are where we want them to be, and we're building what we want to build. What we see in our dreams can absolutely become a reality, but it takes a lot of shifting and it takes a lot of moving the pieces. And even though the concept may have started 6 months ago, the execution is now 6 months later, frustrating the crap out of each other. But maybe now can actually, once we've focused and confronted the frustration, we can start to move forward, because we're incorporating the frustration into our process. We're not thinking it's not going to be a part of the process. We're accepting that this is part of the process. It doesn't mean that the process doesn't continue, but I have to look at this realistically now and not idealistically. And if we accept that, and we accept that kind of maturity of not losing interest in something just because it's not as pretty or glowy as we saw in our dreams, but instead realizing, and we're getting hit hard right now by the realities of that weight of moving mountains. But if you still really believe in what you started 6 months ago, those mountains are going to start to shift. You're going to start to see them crumbling after this full moon, not all at once. And I don't mean crumbling is destructive. I mean crumbling as in you're going to start to see it starting to shift and maneuver and take new shape. And that's actually encouraging, but we're going through a really frustrating point right now before we're able to actually start to see some results. And so it's really a message right now of hold on for one more day, hold on for 2 more weeks, hold on till next month. This is absolutely getting better. It's just the feeling of restriction is so intense right now. The feeling of not being good enough is so intense right now. The feeling of batting your head against the wall that doesn't want to move when you know the wall is cracked and you're not sure why it's not coming down because you know that it fucking needs to, and it's going to. Believe me, it's just gonna fall apart at night when you're asleep, and hopefully not in the building. It's gonna all crumble because it's holding on to these old concepts or beliefs that it feels it has to uphold. And it needs the release too. And I think those walls are going to start to come down around this full moon, where the earth can then be in a place where it can shift more easily. You just don't want to be under the wall. You just don't want to be near the wall. So don't keep batting your head against it. Try to separate yourself from it. Walk away from it. Of course, I mean this all metaphorically. Walk away from it and just know that it is going to crumble. It is going to fall apart, and that falling apart is necessary in order to start moving things around and renovating them to what you want them to look like. You know, Uranus and Jupiter, both in Taurus, is about us being innovative with what we already have and rearranging the bricks and reusing the bricks and repurposing and expanding on what we've already got, and not necessarily trying to constantly make more, but be more clever with what we already have. And that's not easy. That's not easy work, and it is heavy lifts, but we absolutely can do it. This is all possible. I don't think this is in any way gonna shut down you guys. I just think that it's extra pressure right now, and that's why I wanted to reach out to you to just almost lend a helping hand, at least encouragement, to know that everybody's feeling this. Everybody's feeling really, really restricted, and this is when it's all going to sort of pop over the next couple of weeks, especially around that full moon. If you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, so hold on. I just wanted to see that I got everything. So I pointed out on February 29th, so toward the end of this month, Venus is still conjunct Mars, though Venus has now surpassed Mars. What does that mean? There's a little bit more romance and a little less like sexual vitality. There's a little bit more sort of idealism and sensuality over sexuality. Right now, I believe that Mars... No. I know. It's like, why are you using printouts, Michelle? Because I like it. Right now, Mars is still at a higher degree than Venus. So there can be more of like the sex appeal and doing something about it, taking action about it, or taking action about being more social can be dominant. But then after Venus is at a higher degree than Mars, though, it'll be more of that sensuality aspects of the conjunction. So things are forming now. They're coming into shape, or they're getting set to crumble so that new things can take shape. And the crumbling is Earth. So it is, we're all going to feel it. It's real. It's not just emotional, though it sure will be making a lot of people emotional. On the 29th, Venus is conjunct Mars, But by that point, Venus and Mars conjunction will be sextile to the north node and trine the south node. So this can be an opening in something new, when something new actually starts to become possible, when it starts to become sexy, when the mindset of the crowd, and you know, Aquarius energy isn't always open-minded. Sometimes it's hive-minded, which can be very clogging and very not moving at all, clogging up the process of innovation. So ultimately, though, when they sextile the north node and trine the south node, this is that shift that can open. This is that period of opening when you can start to actually see maybe people are more curious and more malleable and not so set in their ways of it has to be exactly this way. But instead, maybe now we're open to more innovation, or actually moving forward and doing things or changing things and being more okay with shifting who we're wanting to be around or what we think is socially acceptable, etc., etc. So I think that there will be a break around that point, around February 29th in particular. The emotional break will come around the 24th, around that new moon, full moon, excuse me. Of all the pressure that's been building up, look back in your calendar. Try to remind yourself, what was going on? What was I starting out with around September 14th of last year? Those moon cycles are really going to see what's coming into culmination now, or where you'll feel the most pressure and you'll need the most emotional release, right? And then you'll start to see a break and hopefully a shift forward, or at least opportunities opening up because of mindsets opening up around the 29th. Now, Venus conjunct to Mars is still going to be square to Jupiter, which just intensifies things and exacerbates things. It makes them more intense and more, more pressure to move forward, more pressure to expand or be more open to different things. It could be less comfortable than you want it to be, but it's still that pressure point of we're trying to open ourselves up, especially to be more open-minded when it comes to what we think is sexy or what we think is appealing, when it comes to social aspects of our community or different kinds of people, or what we think people are capable of even. So there is an opening around February 29th that I think will be actually very healthy for everybody, even though it could be emotionally uncomfortable. It's a breaking point that will shift, and we'll start to feel things start to expand and open around that point. Right now, as I'm talking to you, it is February 19th. So when I say February 29th, I'm really only talking 10 days out. It's not that bad, right? It's 2 weeks. It's a little less than 2 weeks. It's not that bad. The conjunction between the Sun and Saturn will last all the way through March 6th. So you're still going to feel more of that pressure, but it's at that point, since the Sun is going to be at higher degrees of Pisces than Saturn at that point, you'll start to feel more capable and more disciplined because of the restrictions that you had to face. I mean, all the rocks crumbling, you have to go through that emotional stress of everything being destroyed, but then having the courage to go back and pick up those rocks, and you're weak and you're weary at first, but then you're going to start to see the muscles building, and you're going to start to see the new walls that are starting to grow, and then the new architecture that's starting to be built. And you'll start to see, especially by March 6th, that you needed the discipline and you needed the hardship to prepare to know how to design your own life and design your own world. And so, are we entering a pressure point right now? Yes, we are. Are we going to feel a lot of heavy crumbling? Yes, we are. Is this necessary for our own personal strength? 100%. And we're all going to come out of this. I really do believe we're going to come out of this so much stronger and so much more mature, and because Saturn is involved. And I think that that's probably the most helpful and most necessary. I love you guys so much. Please feel free to leave comments below, ask questions. And I will try to get all of this into a blog so that I can share my notes and the charts that I was reading off of with you in that blog. If you haven't yet, go and subscribe to my newsletter so that you can get these different kinds of blogs and this different kind of information that I share twice a month right in your inbox instead of having to go search for it. It'll all be right there. I love you guys so much. Don't forget to like this video, share it where you think people will enjoy it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Astrology Motivation. God bless, guys.